Money was supposed to save them. It was created to protect their empire, feed their armies, and keep their people loyal. But instead, money became the weapon that destroyed them. Not fire, not invasion, not plague, debt, greed, and paper promises. This is the story of how a powerful civilization trusted money and lost everything. A story where gold turned into lies, where rulers printed hope, and where an empire slowly bled to death, one coin at a time. 2. Historical background. The rise of a mighty empire. For centuries, this empire ruled the known world. Its roads crossed continents. Its soldiers conquered nations. Its laws shaped civilization. From the outside, it looked eternal. Cities glowed with marble and gold. Markets overflowed with food and silver. Merchants traveled safely under imperial protection. To the people, it felt like peace. To the rulers, it felt like control. And control needed money. Huge money. Because empires are expensive. Armies need pay. Walls need repair. Officials demand salaries. Public games must entertain the masses. Grain must be imported to feed cities. Every victory cost coins. Every year of peace cost even more. At first, the system worked. Taxes flowed in from conquered lands. Mines produced silver and gold. Trade filled the treasury. The empire became rich. And rich empires make one fatal mistake. They believe the money will never end. The hidden fear inside power. Behind the palaces, fear lived. Not fear of enemies. Fear of collapse. Rulers knew one truth. If the army stopped getting paid, the empire would fall. So the treasury had to stay full. No matter what. Even if there was no gold left. Even if the economy was dying. Even if the people were suffering. That fear would shape the greatest financial crime in ancient history. 3. The financial system. When coins were trust. In the early days, money was honest. Coins were made of real silver, real gold, real metal with real value. A soldier trusted his pay. A farmer trusted the market. A merchant trusted the state. Money meant something. It represented labor, land, and power. But then the wars grew longer. Borders grew wider. Costs grew heavier. And something changed. The treasury started running dry. Not because the empire was weak, but because it was too big. The first dangerous decision. The rulers faced a choice. Raise taxes and risk rebellion. Or change the money itself. They chose the quiet option. Instead of raising taxes, they changed the coins. They mixed silver with cheap metal. They reduced gold content. They made the coins lighter. From the outside, nothing looked different. The face of the ruler was still stamped. The size looked the same. The value was still written. But inside, the coin was hollow, a lie disguised as money. And it worked. First, the empire could pay soldiers again. The markets kept moving. The illusion survived. But something invisible had begun. Inflation. Prices started rising. Bread cost more. Clothes cost more. Rent doubled. People didn't understand why. They blamed merchants. They blamed foreigners. They blamed fate. They did not blame money. Yet, the addiction to fake wealth. Once rulers saw it worked, they did it again and again. Each new war needed more coins. Each crisis needed faster printing. The empire was no longer mining wealth. It was manufacturing it. Metal turned to numbers. Coins turned to paper promises. Promises turned into lies. And lies spread faster than armies. Soon money meant nothing. A soldier's pay could not feed his family. A worker's wage could not buy bread. Savings vanished without fire or theft. The collapse was silent. No explosión. No earthquake. Just numbers rising and value dying. For how it destroyed people. The slow death of trust. The first thing that died was trust. Merchants stopped accepting coins. Farmers hid their grain. Trade slowed. Barter returned. Food became money. Land became money. Weapons became money. The state lost control of value. And when a state loses control of money, It loses control of everything. Tax collection failed. Soldiers deserted.
Corruption exploded.
Officials demanded bribes. Judges sold verdicts. Governors stole from cities. Because money no longer protected power. Power now needed force. The army begins to rot. The army was once loyal, paid in silver, fed by the state, honored by society. Now, they were paid in worthless metal. Their families starved. Their loyalty cracked. Some soldiers joined criminals. Some sold weapons. Some declared their own rulers. Military power turned into chaos. And the empire lost the only thing that had ever truly protected it. Not walls, not laws, but paid soldiers. Cities become traps. Cities once meant safety. Now they meant hunger. Grain prices exploded. Jobs vanished. Crime rose. People fled to the countryside. Trade routes died. Workshops closed. Ports emptied. The economy did not crash in one day. It decayed, like a body losing blood drop by drop. The addiction to fake wealth. Once rulers saw it worked. They did it again and again. Each new war needed more coins. Each crisis needed faster printing. The empire was no longer mining wealth. It was manufacturing it. Metal turned to numbers. Coins turned to paper promises. Promises turned into lies. And lies spread faster than armies. Soon money meant nothing. A soldier's pay could not feed his family. A worker's wage could not buy bread. Savings vanished without fire or theft. The collapse was silent. No explosión. No earthquake. Just numbers rising and value dying. For how it destroyed people. The slow death of trust. The first thing that died was trust. Merchants stopped accepting coins. Farmers hid their grain. Trade slowed. Barter returned. Food became money. Land became money. Weapons became money. The state lost control of value. And when a state loses control of money, it loses control of everything. Tax collection failed. Soldiers deserted.
Corruption exploded.
Officials demanded bribes. Judges sold verdicts. Governors stole from cities. Because money no longer protected power. Power now needed force. The army begins to rot. The army was once loyal, paid in silver, fed by the state, honored by society. Now, they were paid in worthless metal. Their families starved. Their loyalty cracked. Some soldiers joined criminals. Some sold weapons. Some declared their own rulers. Military power turned into chaos. And the empire lost the only thing that had ever truly protected it. Not walls, not laws, but paid soldiers. Cities become traps. Cities once meant safety. Now they meant hunger. Grain prices exploded. Jobs vanished. Crime rose. People fled to the countryside. Trade routes died. Workshops closed. Ports emptied. The economy did not crash in one day. It decayed, like a body losing blood drop by drop. 5. The final collapse. Money breaks the empire before enemies do. When enemies arrived at the borders, the empire had no money to stop them. No loyal army.
No stable taxes.
No functioning economy. The walls still stood, but the system behind them was dead. Invaders did not destroy the empire. Debt did. Inflation did. Greed did. Fake money did. The empire collapsed from inside, like a building with rotten foundations. 6. Lesson for the modern world. Why this story still matters. This is not ancient history. This is a warning. Every empire believes it is different. Every government believes it is smarter. Every ruler believes money can be controlled. But money follows one rule. If you destroy trust, you destroy civilization. You can print coins. You can print paper. You can create digital numbers. But you cannot print value. And when money becomes a weapon, it always turns back on its creator. Part 2. The financial machine of collapse. 3. The financial system or money mistake. The machine that fed on itself. The empire did not collapse by accident. It was not a single bad decision. It was a system built to fail slowly. A machine powered by fear. fear of empty treasuries, fear of unpaid armies, fear of angry crowds. So the rulers created a financial machine that looked strong, but was hollow inside. They called it reform. They called it stability. In reality, it was survival through illusion. Every year, more coins were needed. Every year, less metal was inside them. Silver became copper. Gold became dust. The state kept the face of wealth, but removed its heart. How the lie was hidden. The people never saw the change. They did not weigh coins. They did not test metal. They trusted the stamp. The emperor's face meant value. The empire's symbol meant safety. That symbol became the greatest weapon. A weapon used against its own people. New coins were pushed into markets. Old coins were melted down. The money supply grew, but the economy did not. There was no new food, no new farms, no new skills, just more numbers chasing the same goods. Prices climbed like fire. Bread doubled. Oil tripled. Rent crushed families. And still the rulers printed more. Because the machine had only one setting. More. The birth of controlled chaos. Soon, chaos became policy. The government set prices by force. They punished merchants for charging too much. They blamed traders for inflation. But traders were not the cause. Money was. Instead of fixing the money, they attacked the market. Instead of stopping debasement, they punished farmers. Instead of cutting spending, they controlled wages. This created shortages. When prices were forced down, sellers stopped selling. Food disappeared. Black markets were born. People learned to hide wealth. Gold went underground. Silver vanished from circulation. Only fake coins remained. And fake coins built a fake economy. For how it destroyed people or empires. The farmer who could not win. Once, a farmer sold grain for silver. That silver bought tools. It bought shoes. It bought a future. Now he sold grain for worthless metal. By the time he reached the city, the price had changed. The coin he earned in the morning was weaker by night. He planted less. He hid food. He avoided markets. The state called him selfish. But he was surviving. Production fell. Hunger grew. The countryside began to starve the cities. Not because there was no food, but because money could not move it. The worker who lost time. A worker once saved for years. Coin by coin. Day by day. He believed money was time. His time. Stored for later. But inflation stole it. Slowly. Silently. His savings lost power every month. He did not know the word inflation. He only knew his future had been erased. By numbers he did not control. The soldier who turned rogue. The soldier was promised pay. The state broke that promise. Not openly. Quietly. His wages arrived. But they bought nothing. He began to take from civilians. He demanded bribes. He joined warlords. The army stopped being national. It became personal. Each unit loyal only to itself. And once the army fractured, the empire fractured. The city that became a grave. Cities depend on trust. Trust in supply. Trust in transport. Trust in money. When money failed, cities failed. Trade slowed. Ports emptied. Workshops closed. Unemployment spread. Crime rose. The rich built walls. The poor fled. Urban life shrank. Civilization reversed. Roads broke. Schools closed. Hospitals emptied. The system that had taken centuries to build collapsed in decades. 5. Greed, power, and delayed death. Rulers who chose time over truth. The rulers knew. They saw prices rising. They saw silver vanishing. They saw corruption growing. But they also saw something else. Money still worked, for now. Armies still marched. Crowds were still fed. Palaces still stood. So they chose delay, not repair. They chose to survive one more year. Then one more. Then one more. Each year, the lie grew larger. They believed they could outrun reality. They could not. Why? Greed was logical. Greed was not madness. It was logic inside a broken system. If the state collapsed, rulers lost power. If they stopped printing, armies mutinied. So they printed, they taxed, they seized, they blamed. Anything to avoid truth. The empire could no longer afford itself. The psychology of collapse. Collapse is rarely dramatic. It is gradual. People adapt. They lower expectations. They accept shortages. They normalize crisis. When money died, society learned to live smaller. Less travel, less trade, less trust, until collapse felt normal, until survival replaced growth, until fear replaced ambition. 6. The final unraveling. When money could not buy time anymore, eventually the machine failed. Coins lost all meaning. Taxes arrived in food. Wages were paid in goods. The state returned to barter. That is not progress. That is retreat. It meant the system had reversed. From complex to simple. From connected to isolated. The empire stopped being an economy. It became fragments. Local rulers. Local armies. Local money. Unity was gone. Enemies did not create collapse. They used it. When enemies attacked, they did not face a strong empire. They faced a starving one. Defenses were thin. Command was weak. Loyalty was broken. Invaders walked through doors that money had already opened. The empire did not fall in battle. It dissolved. 7. Lesson for the modern world. The pattern never changes. The story sounds ancient, but the pattern is modern. First, debt grows. Second, money is altered. Third, prices rise. Fourth, trustees. Fifth, society fractures. Different tools. Same result. Paper replaces metal. Digital replaces paper. But the rule remains. You cannot cheat reality forever. Why money is dangerous. Money is not evil. But it is powerful. Connects strangers. It moves armies. It feeds cities. When corrupted, corrupts everything. Because money is belief. And belief can collapse. The human cost of fake money. For how it destroyed people. When numbers became hunger. History books talk about empires. They talk about rulers. They talk about wars. But collapse is not felt in palaces. It is felt in kitchens. When money failed, it was not the emperor who starved first. It was the mother, the child, the worker. Inflation did not look like fire. It looked like empty shelves. The market of fear. Once markets were loud. Vendors shouted prices. Buyers argued. Coins clinked. Now markets were silent. Not because there was no food, but because no one trusted the money. A sack of grain today cost twice as much tomorrow. A family that could eat on Monday, starved by Friday. People rushed to spend money as fast as they received it, not to enjoy life, but to escape loss. Money became poison. The longer you held it, the weaker it became. The death of saving. Saving is hope. It means tomorrow exists, but inflation killed saving. A man worked for 10 years. He stored coins in a jar. When crisis came, his jar bought nothing. Not because thieves came, but because value vanished. Time was erased. He did not lose money. He lost his past. And with it, his future. Families begin to break. When food disappears, morals follow. Parents sold furniture, then tools, then land. Children were sent to work, then sold into service, then abandoned. Marriage became a luxury. Birth became a risk. Life shrank, not in size, but in meaning. Dreams were replaced by survival. The psychology of collapse. When trust dies, society follows. A society runs on trust. Trust in law. Trust in trade. Trust in tomorrow. Money is the bridge between strangers. When that bridge collapses, people retreat inward. They trust only family, then only tribe, then only themselves. The empire did not lose land first. It lost unity. Fear replaced loyalty. Suspicion replaced cooperation. Neighbors became rivals. Rivals became enemies. The rise of hoarding. Gold disappeared. Silver disappeared. Food disappeared. Not because there was none, but because no one wanted to trade. Wealth went underground. Walls grew higher. Doors closed tighter. The poor waited in lines. The rich waited behind gates. Society split, not by class, but by access to real value. Corruption as survival. How law became a price tag. When money died, rules died with it. Judges sold verdicts. Soldiers sold protection. Officials sold favors. Justice had a cost, and the poor could not pay. Law was no longer a shield. It became a weapon. The state lost its moral authority. Power became personal. Violence became currency. The soldier without loyalty. The soldier no longer fought for the empire. He fought for food. He guarded caravans. He robbed villages. He joined strongmen. Uniforms meant nothing. Pay meant nothing. Only survival mattered. And when soldiers stopped believing, states stopped existing. The collapse of daily life. Cities that forgot how to live. Once cities were engines. They produced tools. They made cloth. They built ships. Now cities were mouths. They consumed, but produced nothing. Workshops closed. Schools emptied. Theaters went dark. Culture faded. Not because people forgot it, but because hunger is louder than art. The end of long thinking. When money works, people plan. They build roads. They educate children. They save for old age. When money dies, planning dies. The future becomes dangerous. Why build a house if value disappears? Why plant trees if harvest is stolen? Why learn if survival is enough? Time shrinks. Society becomes short-sighted. That is the true collapse. Not buildings, but vision. How power responded. Blame instead of truth. The rulers did not say, "We destroyed the money." They said, "Merchants are greedy." They said, "Farmers are hoarding." They said, "Foreigners are stealing wealth." Blame is cheaper than reform. Fear is easier than honesty. So they punished sellers. They froze prices. They seized grain. And each action made it worse. Food vanished faster. Trade hid deeper. The system suffocated itself. Violence as policy. When money failed, the state used force to collect taxes, to control markets, to stop riots. But force cannot create food, cannot create trust, can only spread fear. And fear destroys production. The empire began to eat itself. The moment people realized, when hope finally broke. There is a moment in every collapse. Not when the economy fails, but when belief fails. When people stop saying, "This will pass," and start saying, "This is forever." That moment came quietly, in empty homes, in silent markets, in unpaid soldiers. The future disappeared, not in war, but in despair. The lesson for the modern world. The full pattern of collapse. How every financial empire falls. When historians look back, they see a pattern, not of battles, but of balance sheets. First power grows, then spending grows, then debt grows. To hide the debt, money is changed. Metal becomes mixed. Paper replaces metal. Numbers replace paper. Value becomes belief, and belief becomes fragile. At first, people do not notice. Then they feel it. Then they fear it. And by the time they understand it, it is too late. Collapse does not start with war. It starts with a decision. A quiet one. A decision to spend more than can be paid. A decision to promise more than can be delivered. A decision to use money to hide weakness. War comes later. Hunger comes later. Chaos comes later. Money breaks first. Why this story repeats. Power and the temptation of printing. Every ruler faces the same problem. How to pay for power without losing control. Taxes cause anger. Cutting spending causes rebellion. But changing money feels painless. No riots. No speeches. Just numbers. And so leaders choose the invisible path. They believe they can manage it. They believe they can stop in time. They believe they are smarter than history. They are not. Technology changes, human nature does not. Ancient empires had coins. Later empires had paper. Modern states have digital money. But the weakness is the same. Money can be created faster than value. And when that happens, wealth becomes illusion. The tool changes. The temptation remains. The modern warning. Why this is not just ancient history. Today, nations are larger. Markets are faster. Money moves at the speed of light. But trust still moves at the speed of the human heart. When people lose faith in money, they do not ask for explanations. They run. They buy hard assets. They move their wealth. They protect themselves. And when enough people run, the system breaks. Not from attack, but from escape. Inflation is a silent tax. No one votes for it. No law announces it. But everyone pays it. It steals from savers. Punishes workers. It rewards debt. It moves wealth quietly. From the many to the few. That is why it is dangerous. Not because it is loud, but because it is quiet. The moral cost of bad money. How society changes. Bad money creates bad behavior. When money lies, people learn to lie. When savings vanish, people stop planning. When work loses meaning, people stop caring.
Corruption spread.
Because honesty has no reward. Short thinking replaces long thinking. Survival replaces progress. And a society that cannot plan, cannot build. Why trust is the true currency. Gold is not money. Paper is not money. Digits are not money. Trust is money. Trust that work has value. Trust that savings have meaning. Trust that tomorrow exists. When that trust dies, money becomes noise, and civilization becomes memory. The final warning. What history is trying to say. History does not shout. It whispers. It says, you cannot print prosperity. You cannot fake value. You cannot cheat time. You can only choose. Who pays the price? Now or later? The ancient rulers chose later. They kept power. They delayed collapse. They saved themselves. And they doomed everyone else. The final image. Money as fire. Money is like fire. Used carefully, cooks food. Used without control, it burns cities. Empires thought they were masters of it. They became victims of it. Not because money is evil, but because it reflects truth. And truth cannot be debased forever. Final line. Money didn't save them. It gave them time. And they used that time to destroy themselves.